Friends, namaste and welcome to our special episode of Words of Wisdom Gyan Ganga on the Virat Hindustan Sangam YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channel. We have our two Wednesday guests, Dr. Subramaniam Swamy and Rajiv Malhotra ji. As we have informed you, today we will have a discussion on the US presidential election 2020, and also we'll have the second part, the discussion on the PM economic package, which was announced partly yesterday and partly today. So we'll be having a discussion in two parts. The first is the US presidential election. So with these remarks, I would request Dr. Swamy to initiate the discussion on the US presidential election 2020. Thank you, Dr. Swamy, and thank you, Rajiv Malhotra ji, for joining us on the show. Welcome, Arvind Chaturvedi and Ramesh Swamy.
Yeah. Well, welcome to you all. This is it's a great pleasure to have Mr. Rajiv Malhotra on the show again. And this is an expert. He lives in America. He knows India like the back of his hand. So therefore, my first is I'll make an observation that I had the privilege of making the in India the amongst the political circles as the only practically the only person who had predicted that Trump will be the winner. There was under there was a gathering of ministers in one place, and at that time I was told that the principal secretary to the prime minister said that this was my view, and everybody disagreed. And ultimately, I had a bet with the PMO as a senior official, and then he hosted a lunch for me, having won the bet. So I am now making a prediction that in this election also Trump is going to win, and I will broadly express my view on what basis I say so. But for the viewers, I'd like to say that the election polling will be on November 3rd of this year, and I think I've been informed that constitutionally it's impossible to postpone it, and therefore it has to be held. And if it's necessary, they may have mail-in orders or or online. I don't know what mechanism in case the COVID-19 has not been contained by then. There are essentially two parties, Republican and Democrat. Republican is second term for Trump, and Democrat candidate is now Biden, who used to be vice president with in the tenure of Obama as president. And so the most of the votes are between these two parties. But there is a third party called the Libertarian Party, Libertarian Party, which got only 3% votes. But in 11 states, it got the vote which would have changed the results had they not been, and the 3% went on one side or the other. So they were larger than the difference between the two principal candidates then. Now, as you know, the American system, the polling takes place, and after that, each state has delegates, not equal. They are different in proportion of population, and those delegates then form what is called as the collegium, or some other name they might have. I don't know, but I recall it was collegium, and the majority of the collegium members is the final result. So you can lose an election and win you can lose the popular vote and win the presidential election. And that's what happened last time. Trump got, in terms of the percentage votes, got less than Hillary, but in the delegates, when the delegate vote was taken, he had a majority, and a very good majority, and so he became president. And I think the same thing is likely to happen this time too, and maybe the percentage popular vote might be more against him than last time, but still not enough to swing the delegate strength. Now, the real question for us is the issues. What are the issues? Now, as we are speaking from India, I think, and Rajiv also is hooked into the Indian side. Uh, he will appreciate. I'm sure that all the people who are watching this program will also be keen. We are not interested in analyzing from the American point of view. We want to know who's going to win and what will be the policies. And if he's going to win, we need to know what was the issues which decided his victory, so that he should not be bound by those issues and which might be against us. So, of the issues that have been prominent, the first and most prominent today is the handling of this coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic, and whether it's been handled well or it's not been handled well, and so on. It is significant that the number of people dead so far perhaps is in excess of 80,000, whereas in India it's still about 2,500 or thereabouts, and we have a much larger population than the United States. So one of the aspects I think which we are all curious about is why in America, which is so advanced in scientific terms, having this issue where they are doing much worse in terms of casualties than India. But then, nevertheless, the American people will decide. But then there is also a question that healthcare has now become a major issue, and whether that favors the Democrat or the Republicans, that is something that's to be seen. National security policy, I am quite sure it favors Trump, and from whatever I have read and learned, but I stand to be corrected by Rajiv Malhotra. And education and the high cost of education, that's another issue. Gun policy is also an issue. And economy, surprisingly, because before the coronavirus pandemic, Trump was doing very well in the economy, and it didn't seem to be a major issue for re-election, at least as far as Trump was concerned. But there's also a third issue which is of interest to India, and with that I will conclude also, and that is how the next administration will deal with China and and with India. And if it's Trump, would he change? There are indications on some issues he has been unhappy with us, because on Afghanistan we did not take a proactive stand. And there are other issues also. I'm told that it is there. There is also the United States International Religious committee of the informal committee of the Congress of congressmen, which has said some very harsh things about India's secularism. So I would conclude by saying, Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, could you, after your due analysis, tell us which will be a better candidate for us in this coming election, and does he have a chance, that better candidate have a chance of getting elected? Over to you.
Rajiv, you're muted. Sorry, excuse me, Rajiv. You muted. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Thank
you. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's in the left. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it okay? Am I unmuted?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Swamy, and namaste to all the viewers everywhere. It's always a delight to be on this show. So, the short answer to your question on which will be the better candidate, in my opinion, Trump is a much better president for India than Biden. Even though Trump is not a perfect fellow and has many quirks and vacillates and oscillates, and you cannot really tell what's going on, but Biden will be a return of the old Democratic Party. The old gang will be back. This is partly the Clinton, partly the Obama era, They don't have any young blood that is in senior positions. They have a lot of junior people, some Islamic people, some Indians also who are very radical leftists, but they're sort of junior people. As far as the senior brass is concerned, if there were a Biden presidency, it will be a return of the same cabinet people, the same advisors, the same thinking of the past. And, that is not going to be good for India, because since Obama's era, actually things have gotten more anti-India in the Democratic Party than before.
Yes.
In every situation, they've jumped on against India because they are particularly anti-Modi. They are particularly anti-Modi. They were anti-Modi, did not want him to get the visa to come to this country and all that. They wanted all these international human rights inquiries on his role in Ayodhya, whatever. When Trump won, all that was hushed away. If the Democrats came, they will revive all that, and there will be enough voices, enough of their people wanting to stir that up. There is a very strong Pakistani lobby in the Democratic Party. There is a strong Islamic lobby. So it's a mishmash of something equivalent to the Indian left. Something, it's become like that. It wasn't so radical. It was more during Clinton's era. It was more middle of the road, I would say. But during the Obama era, it shifted more to the left. So I think that a return of the Democratic Party to the presidency would have these kind of issues. And besides, India has achieved some traction with the Trump administration. There's good chemistry with Modi. And Trump is a sort of person who, if he likes you personally, it means a lot to him. If he doesn't like you, it really troubles him a lot. So I think, given all these factors, a Trump presidency would be a better option from India's point of view. Of course, it's not necessarily all smooth sailing in a Trump presidency. I'm just making it relative to the Democrats. But even in a Trump presidency, there are a lot of issues. And you also have to think about post-Trump, because, this will be the final term.
Yes.
And in the final term, usually the last year and a half, it's a president who's looking after his legacy, his reputation, whom he should pardon, what kind of a life he'll have as a retired president. And Trump is likely to spend a lot of effort on building up himself. And the person is not likely to take some gutsy action. So really, the second presidential term of Trump will be more like 2.5 years, 3 years of real work. So if he wins, India should take advantage of this window and get certain things done. And he does have guts. He has guts, and he can take strong action. So if something captures his imagination, and India is able to sell and give him in exchange something that he thinks is necessary and important, for his legacy and his greatness, he might just do it. So India should figure out what are the absolute things we want that are realistic for them to do.
Yeah.
And I would say that actions vis-a-vis Pakistan and China, securing our border, UN Security Council, maybe trying to get POK back, something of that sort, something big. It cannot be just little, kind of a tamasha pageantry, jhula hugging. It cannot be like that. It has to be strong deliverables. And, one has to really say that 5-6 years of Modi and nearly 4 years of Trump haven't produced a concrete, actionable, measurable thing on the ground that you could say, okay, this is the big deal. Like the nuclear deal with Bush was a big deal in the Bush era. So something of that magnitude India hasn't done. It's a lot of, we're feeling good, they like us, it's coming, it's happening, we're talking about it, but we have not delivered.
Right.
And this is something that India has to make clear to the Trump administration, that the time has come, we have to deliver something substantial and not just a small thing. Now regarding the electability of Trump, we've talked about the desirability from India's point of view, but the electability, you touched on both the issues. One is the pandemic, the outcome of the pandemic, and the other is the economy. So Trump has to dance between these two, because the medical advice is very different from the advice of restarting the economy. The medical advice is be very conservative, sacrifice the jobs, people should stay home, and so on. But that means people are not going to restaurants, they're not going out, they're not traveling, and that's bad for the economy. So this balance in the middle, Trump has decided that he has to reopen the economy because China is opening the economy. And you don't want to give China a free hand and take over world market share industrially because their economy is open, their factories are open, and other people are not. So China is actually very greedy, very aggressive, taking advantage of this situation to expand their economy and expand their reach in other countries. And it's upsetting not only the Americans, but also the Europeans. A lot of Europeans are now quite upset that they think China is taking advantage of this current situation. So Trump wants to not let them just take us for a ride, but also be involved in opening this economy. That's part of the reason. And then, of course, domestic unemployment figures are very bad. The production, the GDP is going to be very bad figures for the rest of this year, I would say. Therefore, there is a desire to, reopen. And then the more this is reopened, the more it'll hurt the lives at stake, the people who get infected and killed. So this is a balancing act. And I'm not sure what the situation will be on November 3rd when people are voting, whether maybe the economy will be opened up too much too soon, and then there'll be a backlash of the disease spreading, and then they'll have to close it down again. And so there may be a period where it's neither here nor there. And that could be a serious problem for Trump. So I think that's my sense of it. Now, if there were a Trump administration, one of the things they like, the Christian right, which is his basic support base, to do with India would be a counter to Islam and a counter to China. But the Christian right also have very established links with the church and the evangelism and this whole business about religious freedom and all that. So that's the mixture we have to deal with. And they may get even bolder. The Christian right may get bolder in dealing with India. On the other hand, if it's Biden and the Democrats come in, they have a strong Muslim lobby. They are really into this human rights, left-wing idea of human rights. So this is a mix. It's a mixed bag. But I think in the balance, India would be better off with Trump. That's just my sense of it.
Yeah. Let me ask you then a specific question. What do you think would be, in case Trump is re-elected, his exact attitude to China, if you can make a projection?
My feeling is that he is probably going to get tough on China. That's my feeling. And this is also, Trump also always needs a scapegoat. He also needs an enemy. He's not going to want to take responsibility for this COVID crisis. And a good, logical also, target to go after would be China. And in what form it will happen? Will it be just noise making and public relations or issue, or will it be actual action? Will it be in the form of trade war? It probably will be, because American companies have been told that they have to change their their whole supply lines, and not be so dependent on the supply chain is too China centric. And so there's an opportunity for India, but some people have already moved to Vietnam. Many companies have moved from China to Vietnam and other places.
And Bangladesh.
Bangladesh also. But there's also a pressure to bring American companies back home because there's unemployment. So there's likely to be some financial incentive for companies that come back to the US and create jobs. Because if you have 30 million, 40 million unemployed people here, and the government is spending, $2 trillion to $4 trillion to $6 trillion to revive the economy, then what better way than creating incentives for domestic production? Because you solve many problems. You solve the unemployment problem. You also solve the China dependency problem. So my feeling is that one of the very large things that's likely to happen is a component of reviving the economy that has to do with creating jobs in the US, manufacturing jobs, and taking them out of China. So this could be the way that Trump also wants to kind of hit back at China.
All right. Then let me ask you a further question. China is our neighbor, and it's supporting Pakistan. And we have an issue with Pakistan on the fact that they're sitting on our territory, leave alone the fact that they are consistently intervening into our country and sending terrorists. People are dying on a daily basis. So if we were to take some action against Pakistan, which is decisive in destroying the terrorist cells in those parts of Indian occupied Kashmir and even some parts of Pakistan itself. I would say that as far as China is concerned, in the 1965 war, they did not intervene. 71, when we broke up Pakistan into two, they did not intervene. In Kargil, they did not intervene. I have not understood why not. But I mean, I know I can guess, but I would say that I can't bank on it. So therefore, they may intervene. If, for example, we decide now to finish this Kashmir problem by recovering the occupied territory, which according to my assessment and talking to our military people, it's possible. But if it's only India-Pakistan war, do you think there's something we can make a deal with America by which America too would not be inclined to intervene in case we decided to take Pakistan on this issue?
So, in case there were an all-out war between India and Pakistan, and India is the aggressor, and the logic is valid and all that. So let's divide the question into two parts. What could be China's reaction? What could be US reaction? My sense is China will not intervene with boots on the ground and with firepower. They will give Pakistan a lot of help. They're already assembling Chinese jets, fighter jets in Pakistan, giving them a lot of hardware, a lot of technology. They are likely to help them out in that way. I don't think China will have kind of a let's invade India, that kind of a thing, or let's throw missiles at them, because they have too much to lose. And they would rather use Pakistan as their proxy to keep nagging and hitting out at India. So India will need a certain deterrent on the Chinese border. But I think the situation, as far as the fear of an all-out invasion with China is concerned, is not. I personally would not consider that to be a high likelihood. As far as US is concerned, I would go the other way. I would tell US that you have to balance out the Chinese tilt to Pakistan by tilting in our favor, both in the UN Security Council and also maybe with some logistical help, maybe with the US Navy. Maybe we're not asking you to put troops here, but maybe with weapon systems, with intelligence, whatever. And maybe if US were to send a few couple of aircraft carriers into the Pacific near China, that's enough to keep China occupied. I mean, you don't have to have a hot war. You just have to have a show of force on the Chinese border in the Pacific area for China to say, hey, you know what, we don't want to mess with India at this time because we also have the US right here. That kind of a deal with US is more likely that India could negotiate. That look, we are going to take you into confidence. We want to finish this off with Pakistan once and for all. We're not asking you to have military direct intervention, but you can keep China distracted and China occupied in the Pacific. I think that's a possible thing. The bigger question to think about,
And that you think is only possible with Trump as president?
Oh yeah. I think because he's got the guts, the courage, and he also has problems with China and with Pakistan. And
the Democrats are what, compromised?
Democrats will first of all need a lot of time to rethink and revive their attitude towards India, because right now they have either no attitude or a negative attitude, and India will have to win them back, and that will take some time. And there are too many voices. It's not like a one-man show as in the case of Trump that he can decide. The Biden is a weak guy. He's not going to be sitting down like Trump and saying, okay, this is my policy. He'll consult all these kind of people and all these think tanks and so on. They're very confused and they're overall negative towards India. So getting the Democrats organized into a tough action that favors India, even without military action, but that is seen as going against Pakistan, is something that they're not going to want to do. Remember that the nuclear bomb of Pakistan, Clinton knowingly waived. There's an annual waiver the president has to have. If the CIA reports that they are working on this nuclear thing, and Pakistan was not supposed to, and Pakistan had given a guarantee which they were violating, and CIA would every year tell that this is happening, Clinton would waive this thing.
Yes.
So the Democrats have not been able to act strong and tough in recent years. I mean, way back it was different. Kennedy was very tough in the Bay of Pigs and all that, but recent presidents have not been so tough. So I think that if India is looking for strong action, military action against Pakistan, then you better get Trump back.
Okay, all right. Well, sir, I think there's another topic that has erupted on the scene, the stimulus that the government of India is working out for the economic breakdown. And if Jagdish Shetty is okay with it, I would like to move on to this topic and ask an objective observer like Rajiv Malhotra to tell us what does he think about how we are doing in this matter of fixing the economy.
Well, you are the economist, the expert, but I'll give you my impressions. I heard the finance minister's entire discussion this morning. It just finished a couple hours ago. And the details are very scant. They said they will be releasing the details in 3 or 4 installments. So I'm waiting. I want to listen to all of it. Based on what the details are so far, the programs that they have discussed so far, that, for instance, the micro, small, medium enterprises, MSMEs, these are good programs, but they're long overdue. This business of improving the liquidity and helping these guys out with credit and so on is nothing to do with COVID. COVID just made it worse. The programs should have been done a long time ago, and they could have probably saved some problem if they had taken action earlier. So I think that some of these, I have 2 comments on the details I heard so far. One is that there's nothing new as a result of COVID that they are wanting to do. These are things they would have done, should have done, but maybe COVID pushed them into it faster. And the second comment I have is I did not see in the details so far a quantum leap ahead. I think it's more like maintenance. I think, somebody's hungry, you feed him. Somebody's ill, you cure him, heal him. But you're not making them jump ahead in life. Giving some tax rebates and giving some delays in GST and all of that is good maintenance and to bring the economy back. But it falls short of the vision that Modi said. Modi's vision was that we are going to use this as an opportunity to leapfrog ahead. We are going to become like the great power and whatnot. I did not see, actions that would be actually catapult us into another league. I did not see that. I mean, those are nice words and they're good principles. Hopefully more details will be coming. But the details so far are basically repairing the damage. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, see, I have been writing about this matter ever since this lockdown took place. First of all, I've been predicting from 2016 in a series of op-eds in various newspapers and various forums that our economy is going down and the growth rates are decelerating. And this just before the COVID thing happened, our thing had already fallen below 4%, which was the previous year's growth rate. Almost half of what we have been used to in the past of 8% per year during Narasimha Rao's period. Yes, it's true that some of the deceleration began with the Congress Party in 2012, and this has just continued. But with the euphoria of 2014 victory, nobody wanted to admit it. But where the problem arose in just before the coronavirus pandemic was that there was a sharp fall in the demand for goods and services in the economy, largely because of the former Reserve Bank governor who came from the United States, Mr. Raghuram Rajan, who blindly just kept pushing up the rate of interest, and that rate of interest, then you see, put MSME, that is the small industries, the medium industries, out of business because the cost of capital went up. It may have hampered inflation a bit by raising interest rates, but so it's like saying that you kill a patient if you can't control his temperature. In the same way, you raise interest rates, you're actually killing the enterprise. So that needed to be corrected, and I don't see that here. You have given for the MSME sector some without collateral, a 4-year loan. But the fact is, even if they produce for whom? Who's going to buy it? So the sector that should buy is essentially the consumers. And these consumers today are in fact in a very, very bad shape. The rate of savings in our country has come down very sharply. The absolute level of consumption has also come down sharply. So there's nothing of that there. The second thing is there is a social problem arising out of the unemployment of the poorest, and therefore the people below the poverty, which was 21% before this pandemic, is now probably 40%. Or maybe 35%, but it's expanded very fast and it's going to go on increasing unless you address it directly. And that there is none of that in this. Now there are other installments coming, and maybe it'll come in that, I don't know. But there's been systematically an unawareness that the issue is demand, and along with it, supply. There are some industries, the supply is not a problem. For instance, automobiles, they have got a huge inventory. So the supply is never going to be a problem. So that is where I think the economic analysis that was necessary and the application of economics to this stimulus has not taken place.
Yeah, so the shortage of demand is a reflection of consumer health not being there. And as you said, this is true in certain sectors, not only automobile, but also I would say real estate. There's a lot of inventory of real estate sitting idle. You do not need to boost production because you have I'm told that there's a couple of crore units sitting idle across India.
Skyscrapers all empty. Yeah.
So it's a consumer don't have enough money and they are too much in debt and all sorts of things happening. And so the stimulation of consumption, it was not part of this tranche that the finance minister talked about. So we'll wait and see.
It should have been the first part.
Yeah. And also one important question she did not answer. She said, I cannot answer it yet. It'll be some other time. She'll think about it. The question was, what is your source of funds? Where will the 20 lakh crore come from? And when you do a budgeting, before you spend, you have to figure out where you're going to get the money from. I mean, I could go and spend 1,000 lakh crores, and it's a lot of fun to keep announcing, but you got to know where you're going to get the money from. Are you going to print money and create inflation? Are you going to tax people? Are you going to raise the debt and pass it on to the future generations? Somewhere the money has to come from. So what are your thoughts on that? Like how do you think the government will raise the money?
If government printed notes and gave it to workers who are building infrastructure like roads or something,
Then
it
that's
can't
good.
be inflationary.
Right.
In fact, that's how the Americans got out of the depression in 1930s.
Right.
They built all these roads and so on and got people employed. So same thing with the small and medium industries. You identify the consumers and you give the small and medium industries also to stand on its own feet. But at the same time, the buyers of the products of small and medium industries, they should also be empowered to buy. And consequently, I don't think printing notes, because we don't have any gold standard or anything anymore, so we can print as much as we like. But if there is excess capacity and you want the industry to start, then printing notes is not bad. If there is a consumer demand that's weak, then putting money into the people's hands by creating artificial projects like building roads or building, stadiums, etc., etc. These things the Chinese did, by the way, between in the 80s and the 90s, and that's how the Chinese economy started moving after Mao Zedong had completely destructed the economy following the Great Leap Forward and all these other excesses that he engaged in. So this is where the economic theory is not being applied. It's almost like as if you're running a Salvation Army and have collected old clothes and you're going to distribute them. That kind of thing. It's not empowerment at all. And I think the migrant labor has been a very sad social situation, and they should have been assured of getting jobs either when they go home or they enable them to come back to resume their jobs.
So it seems that the big thing that is lacking is a large government construction projects.
Yes.
Huge, large-scale works projects. So,
Yes.
so I didn't see that. I mean, if they're giving credit to MSMEs, that's fine. Deferring some taxes, giving some free stuff, food here or there, and all that, that's okay. But that
Yes.
is not money. That is not government putting out tenders to build huge infrastructure, which will have a life for 100 years and help the economy. And the money, giving money to people, poor people, in exchange for labor, which is going
Yes.
to produce something, some capital thing, some good, some infrastructure,
Yes.
would be a good
Yes.
thing. So what keeps them from doing that? Because there's so many projects that could be started, which are
Yes.
actually constructive projects, and they could
Yes.
give salaries rather than handouts.
Yeah, I agree. See, even on taxes, let me say, tax relief is not the answer, because the same taxman is only being told to collect less than before. You have to do something dramatic. And I feel that one of the most dramatic things you can see, if you see the recipient of the beneficiary sees it immediately, feels it immediately, is abolishing income tax. You see, there's no income tax in agricultural incomes. From the beginning, we have never, had an income tax on agricultural incomes. We have no income tax for people below the poverty line. We have no income tax of those rich people who can afford smart chartered accountants. So therefore, it's the middle class, the upper middle class, the entrepreneurial class who are targeted, and this is a historic thing that we have inherited, but we have done nothing to rectify it. So the answer is not reducing taxes or reducing, for instance, on MSME, we have said you can have a loan for 4 years and there'll be no collateral. That's not enough. You have to give it as a grant. And that's what Trump has done, by the way. He has not said that you have to pay it back or anything like that. He's just given a grant. So I think the bureaucrats are forming these programs and not economists who can stand on their own feet and stand up to the politician.
So this takes us to a favorite topic of ours, and that is the too much power of the bureaucrats.
That's right.
And too much power of the bureaucrats because the politicians don't have the subject matter expertise.
That's right.
They get shunted from this ministry to that ministry, like ministries are some kind of a joke that you can run this one, that one.
That's right.
They're
That's
not
right.
like lifelong people who've really studied a particular field
That's
of
right.
expertise.
That's right.
I mean, somebody who's a defense minister does not have a background in defense. He
That's
just
right.
listens. He reads reports. Somebody
Or
who's an
strategic
economist.
analysis. Or strategic analysis.
And somebody who's a finance minister does not, in India's case, does not have to be an economist. I mean, this is the problem we have.
Yes, that's right.
We are not giving subject matter experts the
That's
top
right.
leadership, and
Right.
the bureaucrats are sort of inbred. They belong to some cadre, and they're sort of inbred, and they are not. They're going to close ranks. They are not going to shake up the way things are done because that's their
Right.
whole power structure. So I
Right.
think Modi has not had one of the most critical reforms, which is the reform of the bureaucracy.
Absolutely. And they can mislead him. They told him when he got re-elected that India can achieve doubling of its income to $5 trillion in 2024. I said, if you double in 5 years, the growth rate is 14.4% per year. Now, this basic calculation, the bureaucrats did not present to the Prime Minister. But it's even they told him you can double. He thought that's a great thing that you can double your national income. But any doubling in 5 years means 14.4% per year. And you can't achieve that because you haven't been achieving even 8%, which you previously achieved. So that is the problem with listening to bureaucrats.
So
Especially
I
if you
will
don't
be
know the
so I will be listening to the finance minister's further announcements with great
further.
interest
Let's see what she says.
and with an
Sure.
open mind. And I really hope for the best for the country because, all said and done, it's the 130 crore people that one feels sorry for.
Yeah.
And whatever the top 1% or 0.1% may do or not do,
Yeah.
we have to feel for the average person who is in bad shape. And things are not going to get better very quickly.
Before I hand it over to Jagdish, one comment. One thing I'll say, Indian record is that we never collapsed in the end. We had a food crisis in the 65, we got a green revolution. We had a foreign exchange crisis where we had to declare default of payments of our foreign loans and get a very bad rating. We survived that by sheer stroke of luck and some of the dealings that time I had come into government we had with the Americans. So like that, India will never sink. But why India should not gallop? That is the issue. And so now, Jagdish, if you want to
So, so
conclude
on,
this, yeah,
so on
yes,
this, what I'd like to say is that thanks to the tapasya of our ancient rishis and
that's
our
right.
ancestors, we
Right.
have inherited a lot of good karmic,
Yes, that's right.
good karma of the past.
That's
And
right.
rather than sort of living off this life and saying, okay, we're invincible because our, the ancient
Yeah.
people did such great tapasya,
Yes,
we have been given an opportunity to
that's
do
right.
the tapasya ourselves and continue this for the next generation.
That's right.
Because we have not been sinking, but a big ship takes a long time to sink. If it's got some leaks, it will look like in one generation it look like it's still floating. But India should not be content with just floating.
That's right.
As you said, we should be taking a leap ahead, and we should show the potential of the Indian people. The Indian people have a huge potential which has not been realized.
Right. Jagdish?
Yes, Arvind, please.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy and Mr. Rajiv Malhotra for bringing two very important issues today to our listeners. First issue about the U.S. presidential election. I think since the opinion is that Trump is in a better state to help India when he returns, and I think Prime Minister Modi has already organized the two events, Namaste Trump, and he was a part of Howdy Modi. So maybe Indian Americans will also help in the election to the Trump coming back. And the second issue, of course, all the cards have not been opened by the finance minister. The announcement is coming in bits and pieces, and let's see what unfolds before the entrepreneurs and the MSME businessmen and the public in general to face the COVID-19. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we are going to have a special guest from UK, Mr. Satish Sharma. And Satish Sharma is going to talk about the Ghar Bapsi for British Hindus, if or when. And we'll be meeting at 8 o'clock as usual. Dr. Swamy will be with us, and along with this, Mr. Satish Sharma will be joining us. So look forward to this very interesting discussion tomorrow as well. And thank you for presenting this very interesting topic today, Mr. Malhotra and Dr. Swamy. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Namaskar.